For this brain starter, you know that the tangent of angle C is 3 over 4, and it's asking you to find the other 5 trigonometric ratios. So the first thing we'll do is label where the 3 and where the 4 goes. That's angle C. And the opposite, because tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, the opposite over here is 3, and BC, the adjacent, is 4. Now, I'm going to give you time to solve for the hypotenuse, which we will need. So pause your video, and I'll give the answers in 3, 2. Using the Pythagorean theorem, we plug in 3 for A and 4 for B, and we're solving for C. Simplifying that, we get 25 equals C squared, take a square root, and C equals 5. You also may have remembered it as a Pythagorean triple. So now let's find the remaining. Pause your video now so you can fill in the remaining 5 trigonometric ratios. I'll give the answers in 3, 2, 1. First we label 3 is opposite, 4 is the adjacent, and 5 is the hypotenuse, which means that sine equals 3 over 5, cosine equals 4 over 5, tangent's already given to us at 3 over 4, cosecant equals 5 over 3, secant is 5 over 4, and cotangent is 4 over 3. You can use trigonometry to find a side in a right triangle. And the way you do that is if you're given one side and one angle of the triangle. And then, of course, you're looking for a side. The first step you would do after you know that you need trigonometry is you would label the hypotenuse, the opposite, and the adjacent, which is what we've been doing. The next step is decide which ratio to use. So for example, if you're only given the opposite and the adjacent, well then you can't use sine or cosine because they both have the hypotenuse in it. The opposite and the adjacent would be tangent. Or you could also use cotangent if you wanted to. Next step is set up a proper equation with the information that you're given. And then step 5 is solve the equation. In this problem, we're given one side and one angle, and we're asked to find a side. That means we can use trigonometry, which means we move on to step 2, label the hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. Pause your video and label those sides now. I'll give the answers in 3, 2. In the diagram below, we're looking from the acute angle of 42, which makes this side here the opposite, x the adjacent, and always 18 is going to be the hypotenuse. Now comes the question of which ratio do you use? So, of these 6 ratios, there are 2 that you could use. The question is only going to ask for one of them. So, pause your video and think, which ratio should I use? I'll give the answer in 3, 2. Since we are looking for the adjacent and we have the hypotenuse, we're going to be using cosine. In this case, cosine of 42, the angle, is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Plugging in the values, the adjacent is x, the hypotenuse is 18. The easiest way to solve these problems is to first put your trig ratio over 1 because that won't change anything. And next, cross multiply. This becomes important because it determines whether or not you're going to end up dividing with that trig ratio or simply multiplying. In this case, we have x times 1, which is x, and then we have 18 times cosine of 42, which you can just multiply in a calculator, and it's very simple. It gives you an answer of approximately 13.3766. It goes on for a while. For the purpose of this lesson, I'm going to ask you to round to the nearest hundredth. So your answer is 13.36.